led by Ms. Cummings.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gilliard.
Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we come this day lifting up your name and giving you praise. God, before we ask you for anything, we want to thank you for what you've already done. Thank you, God, for during the hurricane, God, the devastation was minimal. Lives were spared. God, even though there is a period where we must regroup and some areas must rebuild, but God, we thank you that no lives were lost. Continue to bless our teachers, our administrators, our children, and our parents. God, we pray for this board and for the meeting that is about to convene, God, that our hearts and minds, God, would be on one accord, and we would do, oh God, what is in the best interest of our children and our community. Now, God, have your way and lead us, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Our first presentation will be by Mr. G.G. Galloway.
And Madam Chairman, if I could just interject while Mr. Galloway's coming up, I've asked him to come to us today to bring us up to date on the status of the show in the Campbell building and possible buyers. And after he presents, I'd like to read a statement, just kind of bring it together so we can have a discussion. But he's got some pretty up-to-date information that I just want you to be aware of, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you for driving up today, Mr. Galloway.
Well, thank y'all for allowing us
Scott.
to get in early, and I'm glad to hear everybody made it through the hurricane, and it's, we were out power for a week, and it's enjoyable to come to a meeting like this. I wanted to bring you up to date, monthly report. As of the last 30 days, we've had 1,203 displays on the Campbell building. Those are electronic displays. Out of those, there was 70 hits, and those individuals wanted more information. Out of those 70 hits, we sent information to 21 people or individuals or companies. Out of those 21 people, we have 5 groups that we are presently working with right now. One of them you already know about is a contracted developer that we were hoping to have a decision. They know of y'all's timeline of sometime in October. There are 2 individual investors. One has been on site, and the other partner is, due to the hurricane, they have delayed their decision probably about 10 days. But hopefully we'll be hearing something from them one way or the other, either up or down. We showed it to an ophthalmologist group that has about 7 locations throughout the state of Florida. He had never really been in Palatka. He thought that the demographics might be. He still has an interest, but he doesn't know if what he wants to do, if the community is large enough to support what he wants to do. We also had I don't know if it was more of an open house, but we had the historical group that came by, and they had, I believe, an architect, an engineer for some items that they might be interested of doing or maybe not being able to do. But we did open that up for them. Presently, just today, we had a industrial group that has shown some interest. They are located out of state, and they are working on a contract right now, and they will be back in touch with us within the next 2 weeks. So those are the main people that we are working with.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
It's due to confidentiality. It is a large company. They just got in contact with us today.
Okay.
They would be doing. They are actually looking at this area because y'all have some private airspace somewhere close by. We have a pilot here. Is that what we call it? Private airspace? Not restricted area. Restricted. I'm sorry. Restricted airspace. And the product they make, they need to be close to a restricted airspace. Okay. So it would be probably more along the engineering lines.
Okay. Technical
engineering group. I'll be able to get more information with you, and that lead just came to us today.
Oh, okay. Some kind of manufacturing company, though.
It'll be a high sophisticated
Okay,
It would be good for it'd be something good for the community. It'd be employment of people, and they would be using the room size or perfect size for what they produce.
okay, thank you.
And may I ask this, the price?
We believe the reason we're getting this activity, if you recall, maybe 2 meetings ago, I think I missed one meeting, we dropped the price to $5.95.
Okay, okay.
And the price is $5.95, and that's what we believe has been bringing activity. Now, in the meantime, we still haven't, we still have the group, Synergy from Daytona Beach. They are a real group. They just closed on a similar type property from the Volusia County School Board in Holly Hill.
You know what they paid for that?
Scott, was that about $485? They're going to buy that in 2 or 3 phases. I think it was around $385, $485, and as partials that they can do. And there was also some county incentives and city incentives. It was Holly Hill Middle School. I can get you the exact number on that.
Is that pretty much a current proposed buyer still? Would you call that current, or would you not?
I think they're still out there at the price at a much much lower price than we have offered. I believe they are still out there at a much reduced price though.
Okay,
And that's strictly a personal opinion.
okay.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Galloway?
From my perspective, I've been very disappointed in Mr. McMahon with Synergy. I feel like his posture for negotiating has been take it or leave it. And I don't care if he hears that from me or not. It
Sure.
certainly
I
has
feel the
not
same
been,
way.
has not been productive for the process with us facing a timeline of October. So to have to deal with some of our ancillary properties as per state statute. So anyway, that's all the question I had. Was that-
Sure, I understand. That's, people have different ways they negotiate.
Right, I understand.
And I think you're,
And I don't like
Gigi,
this.
I appreciate, I know we had you doing a job and you've done
Yep.
what you can do.
Well, you're very helpful through that whole process, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
You're sticking by us and helping us, and,
we're here to support you in any way in your best interest. We are transactional brokers, but we also are here to advise and consent and we work for y'all. So we wanted to bring y'all up to date, and we'll be more than glad.
And I think today's meeting, we want to, we either, we're going to have a decision to make or not make or discuss, but I think we need to hear the very latest from Mr. Galloway before we have that discussion. So I really appreciate it, and I know you'll keep us up to date on
Okay.
And
this
again, that
latest one.
production company, they are gonna get back in touch with you.
We'll know something within the next 2 weeks. Now let me just explain how companies work. We will know their level of interest.
May not have an offer.
That doesn't necessarily mean we'll have an offer, but we will have a level of interest from them, and maybe sooner.
2 weeks puts us beyond a statutory deadline that is not.
So Gigi,
Or
the one
feasible.
company that we were still waiting for, the one that's had that interest, I mean, I kind of thought when we said emergency meeting, then one of them must have made a formal, one of those that you mentioned didn't make a formal,
Well, we thought we were gonna have, I hate to put, we're all big people, I hate to put the blame on a hurricane,
right,
but we thought we would have had something on this one group,
right.
and they're using it as a I'm not saying they're positioned, they're just backed up on other projects. It's a large developer, and they're backed up on other projects. And he said the hurricane has just postponed them making a decision for a few days. It could be, y'all could tell me that based on what y'all are gonna do today, that they need to give us a decision by a drop dead date. Are they either in or out?
Okay. So you didn't call the emergency meeting I thought maybe you had an offer and called and said,
No,
hey.
he had nothing to do with it.
Oh.
No, I think I came in here one day and left a note. I hope y'all didn't think that was an emergency meeting about we had a showing.
Okay.
And I was giving y'all an update. I think that was
Okay.
2 weeks ago. Y'all meet every 2 weeks?
I appreciate you keeping us updated.
Okay, I
thought-
think we just came in and said, oh, by the way, we had a showing for somebody.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for coming. Yeah, I've asked Madam Chairman if I could read a statement prior to public comments, because, what I read may generate some, other people may want to make some comments, but if you would bear with me for just a minute. For the past 2.5 years, the school district has made the effort to dispose of all ancillary property as required by the state. After initially listing the Campbell building with our real estate broker for $995,000, then reducing the listing to $595,000, there have been very few interested buyers, and I'm glad to hear we have some additional ones today. We as a district have come to a point in time that the Campbell building will need to be listed as a vacant district property with the state as required by House Bill 7069 beginning in October of 2017. Charter school organizations who meet the eligibility requirements of the Schools of Hope may choose to gain use of the building to establish a charter school with financial assistance from the state. These for-profit schools may be headquartered anywhere in the United States and make money at the expense of our students. Another option has been presented to my staff that I want to make you aware of, and that is, again, just to be transparent and make you aware of what's been presented to us, to donate the Campbell building to a local nonprofit independent educational foundation. And the foundation we know as Lift Putnam has changed their designation from a direct service organization, or DSO, to a non-direct service organization, or non-DSO. Lift Putnam is now completely a separate foundation from the District School Board of Putnam County. However, their mission is to support the students of Putnam County. As a school board, I would like you to consider both options at this most important time. The first choice is to continue to try to sell the building with the assistance of our broker, Coldwell Banker. The proceeds from the district's sale of the property would be deposited in the district's capital outlay funds. The risk of an outside charter organization taking use of the building will continue to be a concern. The second choice is to donate the building to a nonprofit foundation like Lift Putnam or another foundation or organization of your choosing. By donating the building, the ownership of the building would be transferred and the building would not be eligible for use by a charter organization. If you choose to donate the building to Lift Putnam, you have in front of you a tentative agreement that would need to be approved by both the District School Board and the Lift Putnam Board of Directors. If both boards voted to approve the transaction this week, the Campbell building would not be listed as a vacant property with the state. So, Madam Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, Mr. Douglas, is here to address that. Now, I do want to apologize. I want to apologize for the late notice on the contract. We received that yesterday, and it was put on board docs this morning, but again, I understand you're concerned if you didn't have a chance to review that. Mr. Douglas can also answer any questions about that.
Jane, for the purpose of discussion, can I make a motion?
Can,
Not yet? Not yet?
not yet, not yet. Dr. Surrency, would you please explain to everyone, just so we'll know why this is considered an emergency meeting?
The reason I bring it up now is because, up until now, we have not had any serious offers on the building, and I wanted to at least bring this up to our board prior to October, because October is when we will need to make available our vacant property to the state, and I feel like it's our obligation to make sure we at least discuss it and, entertain any options that you have. Whether you decide to vote on that today or not, that's entirely up to you as a board.
Is there a date certain?
I
for
talked to the state this past week, and I said, I need a date certain. And they said they would be in contact, but by statute, they have listed October. So again, that could mean October 1.
Yeah, because we're looking at October a couple of days from now.
Right.
We don't know if it's October 1 or October
Right.
30th.
Right.
Because we
But
had.
I did ask the
if-
question.
Because if we had a date certain, there's a possibility that this production company
Sure.
could, knowing the price, but yet Liv Putnam is, they're doing great things, so.
Yeah. But I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Kathy
Yeah.
wanted to speak.
Okay.
Ms. Jorgensen would like to say some things.
Okay.
I am very concerned, Board, that this is not in fact an emergency meeting, and let me explain something. It's law that determines what an emergency is. Irma was an emergency. God forbid Columbine, the board would be meeting an emergency. The difference between an emergency meeting and a regular or special meeting is that we only give the public 48 hours notice on an emergency meeting. So it only hits the news the day of the meeting. And people leave for work in the morning and they don't even know we're having this meeting till they get home. And a true emergency, that's fine. But I advise us strongly not to take any action at today's meeting. We need to give the public, and I understand that now, September or whatever it is, it's an emergency for October, but I still don't think that's, so we picked from 2 today because all of a sudden it has to be October 1st. Haven't we known this for like a long time? I'm not gonna vote, and I strongly urge this board not to take any action today.
Well,
It's not legally an emergency
I'd
meeting.
like to say something now that she's had her say. For lack of credible offers, I wasn't born yesterday, but I wasn't born today either. I don't perceive even this manufacturing company meeting the comprehensive plan to locate in downtown historic district. I don't see us reaching this prior to the October 1st deadline.
No, we didn't say October 1st.
I understand what you're saying, but I love Ms. Jorgensen, but she's not an attorney either. I think an emergency can be an emergency if we deem it, if the superintendent deems it, in his opinion, to be emergency.
No,
Now,
it's a
Charlie
school board's
can
gonna be
advise that
We're
if
gonna
possible. We're looking at $1 million piece of property that's looking at being passed over, and what I would like to do is make a motion to have someone, so we can discuss this and hear from the public that came, simply to put it on the table.
We don't need a motion.
There's no.
Well, I'd
This
like to,
doesn't
just
say
as a
vote.
formality, that way we can vote it up or down or take no action. I don't know that you can not vote
Leave now.
on an issue unless you have a reason to recuse yourself from a vote, but I'm not the
School board
attorney.
that's gonna be charged with the violation of the Sunshine Law, if there is something charged.
I
It's
don't-
us, the 5 of us,
It's
nobody
not on
else.
the agenda.
So we call the
Charlie, can you-
emergency.
Charlie, you
Opinion
want to go
vote.
ahead?
Yeah, there's no,
There's no.
I've been on the
There's no
board for
vote on
almost
it.
12 years, I know the Sunshine Law.
Well, I've been around too.
The agenda doesn't say vote. That's all I'm concerned about.
and I don't have any public comment cards.
We can,
We have one, I think.
we are a self-judiciating body, and I know we're bound by certain rules and regulations. Mr. Douglas may help clear this up.
Go ahead, and then I'll ask my question. Make
Around
my
2 o'clock
comment.
today, I was asked to specifically research the title of this meeting, whether it's a special or emergency. I was walking into a previously planned meeting, so I am researching this matter now. I can tell you what I've found so far is that according to our bylaws, 0160, considering meetings, and more specifically 0164 and 0165.1 and 0165.3, that we have done everything required per our bylaws for the notice requirements of this special meeting. Also, I have reviewed Florida Statute 1001.372 and find that we are in compliance with that statute. I do not know if there is a case interpreting bylaws and statutes that say for the purchase and sale of capital buildings within the district that is properly within the purview of a special meeting or not.
Emergency, not special.
We are,
I'm saying there's a difference between a special meeting and an emergency meeting. A special meeting requires 7 days' notice, an emergency meeting requires 48 hours. That's what I've been taught for 11 years.
well, the superintendent is by law our secretary, and when he calls an emergency meeting, it is what he deems it to be an emergency. I would have to still, once again, I would like to make a motion so we can discuss the options and hear from the potential and see if Lift Putnam was even interested and hear what they have to say. I don't think this is fair to bring these people here and to have this motion and be looking at about handful more days and expect.
I have no objection to people talking. I just
but I don't think we
believe
have to
we
make a
should make
motion.
any
Yeah, it's not
decisions.
on the
This board
agenda.
is not, I'm telling you, we get charged, not the superintendent. Superintendent can does, the board gets charged with the violation of the sunshine law.
If you're gonna take a violation of sunshine law, which we're not gonna do, and if you're gonna take it, and you're gonna take it to save $1 million in a building for the community and to help the children of Putnam County, I say take it, but that's
You
me.
say break the law.
Yeah, but that's
How are we
not.
breaking the law?
I'm not breaking the law. We're doing what
Sunshine
Mr.
law.
Douglas just said, but let's be civil. I'd like to make a motion that we consider the superintendent's recommendation and look at the Lift Putnam and hear from the input.
David, and I'm new to this, I don't understand why we have to make a motion there.
Because then when we hear it all, we can vote it up or down.
But there's
I'm
no
not
vote
voting.
on the
There's
agenda.
no vote on the agenda.
This was, in my mind, I looked discovery and
If
an
it was-
opportunity to share ideas.
If it
Right,
was
I mean-
something,
Why would you think
This-
you could vote today when it's not
I
on the
think it's,
agenda?
because I know we can
Is this
vote
not an,
today.
is this,
Where?
can,
Action item on the agenda. to say
Where?
Where? It
Where?
usually says
It
discuss.
says
topic.
action, it doesn't
says
say
topic.
input, discussion,
No,
and action.
usually
think-
there's input,
The
discussion.
sale of Campbell Building, and if you look on board docs, it's under action. It has an action.
You're-
On this agenda, it always says that.
Everybody's talking form over substance here. This is about meeting a
I'm not prepared to
statutory
vote on
deadline.
anything today.
All right, well, let's make a motion, and then if you don't want to vote, you don't have to vote. I want to make a motion
You do.
that we,
Yes, you do. You have to vote unless you can legally excuse
you
yourself.
can't legally recuse yourself unless you have a conflict of interest.
Correct.
And this,
So we don't,
and this cannot come up on our October 3rd meeting?
of course it can.
I mean,
It
we're
can be
meeting
put in a
October
way that we
3rd,
could vote
and we
on
can
it.
put it in
Right.
under unfinished business if we don't finish
Correct.
discussing it today, and then vote. And then we take care of what Kathy's concern was, the public will, have notice of.
I
No,
have,
because the agenda already went out. It has to go
Oh,
out
it's
seven
on
days.
Mr. Douglas, can
So
you
you
shine
can-
light, can you settle the,
we've got all
the
these people
conflict
here
about
that
whether
wanna
they
speak.
can vote on it or
They
not?
can speak,
Based on the
David.
agenda?
Well, what good is it going to do to speak if you're going to wait till past the statutory deadline?
They've
We'll
spoken.
know when that
Mr.
is.
Douglas, can Mr. Douglas make an
Yes.
Yeah,
an
and a gold
opinion on
meteor
this?
might fall out of the sky today, and we'd have plenty of money, so I mean,
David.
Jane,
Historically, it's been the practice of this board to vote on matters when they are titled action items on an agenda. I reviewed the agenda and the board docs. I do not see that term, but I don't know if that is a requirement. I'm looking at that now. If historical precedence is just that, or if it's legally binding. I'm
Well-
reviewing the bylaws right now, just as the superintendent has
Okay.
asked.
Why don't we do this? Public comments next. Let's have our public comment, and then under sale of the building.
for us to discuss it, we need to have a motion and a second, and then you can vote it up or down.
We
David,
don't need a motion to
not before
discuss
public
things.
comment.
It's not true.
Well, what are you scared of?
Just do the procedure.
What are you scared of?
I am not
I'm not
having
scared of
any
anything.
motion, I'm not taking any action at this meeting. I'm gonna walk out. If there's a motion made for any kind of action, I'm leaving the meeting personally, so that my name isn't on whatever it is when they violate you with the sunshine law.
I just don't
That's not a
understand why
sunshine
we're not
violation.
following the agenda,
But,
David.
well, go ahead. Go ahead when, just go
Can
do
we
what
do
you're
that,
gonna
and
do.
then
I'm not the attorney, but I'm telling you, this is time to fish or cut bait.
I know, but it's not on the agenda yet.
You've got a vague deadline from the state of
Can I follow
Florida.
the agenda?
You could go do what you're gonna do.
You're in charge.
Okay, I'd like to follow the agenda, and we have a public comment from Vito Russo that I'd like to hear. Thank you, Vito. Please, no, you won't. I know better than to believe that. As long as you didn't bring any pitchforks, we're okay.
No, ma'am.
You look calm by comparison, is what you have to say.
If you really think about it, it's really a moot point, because I can tell you right now, the community overwhelmingly supports the idea that I've been espousing for the past month or so. So, I will definitely be within the 3-minute mark today. I'm sure that's a change of pace here. The first thing I'd like to say is that I would like to ask the superintendent and the school board members to forgive me for the times when I get a little bit too tunnel visioned. I get too impatient and I get too determined with my goal. So I think that might be considered a character flaw. So anyway, what we read in today's paper, in today's edition of the Pawtucket Daily News regarding Lift Putnam organization and the Campbell building demonstrates true leadership in this community. It's true leadership, plain and simple. Last week, when I gave my presentation about the Cultural Arts Center vision, and I, at the end, was fielding questions, I did not have a solution for the two remaining major obstacles to manifest that vision, and that was the ownership of the building and finding the grants matching funds. Those were two. I didn't have any solution for that. But what I did know is that solutions existed, and that if we worked together, we would find them. That I knew with certainty, and I think I expressed that last week. So, I do not know whom all was involved, but I do know that Rick Cerncy was involved, David Buckles, Jim Padgett, and I know Chip Leibel was involved. And these leaders and other leaders developing this creative solution that combines the two programs, the Lift Putnam program and the Pawtucket's Cultural Arts Center program. This creates synergy, making both those programs more viable than they are separately. These community leaders need to be recognized as the kind of creative leaders with vision that this community so desperately needs. I mean, we need creative leaders. We need leaders with vision. So these two programs, Lift Putnam and the Pawtucket Cultural Arts Center, is far and away, I have the utmost conviction, these two programs are far and away the most beneficial use of the Campbell building. For those two programs are going to have a significant economic and cultural impact. So together, you and them and myself and other citizens, we're going to revitalize this community. We're going to improve the lives of our citizens, because we are smart enough, we're creative enough, and we're determined to do so.
I'd like to ask
Wait, Vito.
Mr. Padgett if he would come up
Yeah.
and share some options
Jim?
with Lift Putnam.
So you've sat down with Mr. Padgett and you've had discussions about shared use of this building?
Preliminary, yes, and we're scheduled to sit down and have more detailed discussions, yes.
So you're okay with it going to his 501c3?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But what if what if Lift Putnam, the board, not just Jim, decide to sell that building?
Well, I don't perceive that as an option.
You don't?
Well, anybody else, you
sell
kept
it.
saying they could sell it or, center. I'm just curious.
Well,
There's some kind of
I think it's pretty obvious that Jim Padgett and Lift Putnam is in it for the community and not in it for any kind of financial gain.
And that's true, but I
Yeah,
just didn't know if there was like a legal binding partnership or.
No, I think Lift Putnam's going to expand.
There are more
To include
options
the
than you can
Pawtucket.
shake a stick at.
But we want to know what they are, honey.
Well,
Sure.
David, excuse me.
Sure, I mean, there are details,
Sorry.
there are details that have to be worked out.
you're welcome, dear.
There are details that have to be worked out, but, I mean, we all know that Jim's in it for the benefit of the community. I'm in it for the benefit of the community. I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm not getting paid to put all this time into this. I mean, this is something that, I mean, the right way to live. It's very important to me.
Madam Chair.
We have to do good
The two
works.
can coexist.
We
Ms.
have to,
Cummings
we
has
have to
some-
do good works. We have to,
Well, before you go on with this, let's hear some of the other options that could also come to fruition fruition with this.
Yeah, yeah.
I.e. the college at some point having cultural arts classes or different opportunities for endowments. Let Mr. Paget come up and tell his side
And I wanted
and
to,
educate you.
but Ms. Cummings would like to say something first.
Yeah, I mean, I am 100% supportive. And all this procedural thing about voting today or not, that's what concerns me. I just want to do it correctly for all the stakeholders to be involved on the right way. And that's why I have no problem, no controversy with this kind of discussion happening. This is great discussion. But as far as saying we're going to vote today, I'm blown away, honestly. I just thought it was completely caught off guard. So I am not at all against the idea, but I want the conversations to continue as far as whether or not this happens October 1st and we have a charter school knocking on our door.
Right.
What are the chances of that happening?
We just want to
Since-
answer the phone call.
Since the state hasn't even given you the date. So,
Well, we did get a phone call, by the way.
I just think we needed more information to make a decision
Yeah.
today,
Well, I
David.
tried to make a motion where we can
I just
have
like all
discussion
It
and
needed
more
to be in our
information.
hands like it is for
if
every
you make
meeting.
a motion and nobody votes and it's done,
This
that's
is
a
my-
bad idea
This is
because
not
then.
my first rodeo, ma'am.
that-
I was gonna let you hear from Mr. Paget.
But
if
my
he'd come
point
up.
is, if we don't have support, if they're not sure with the procedure part, you're missing the big picture. And I want to hear the big picture. I want the conversation to continue and all the stakeholders to prepare and have these ideas presented to us. If you made a motion, nobody seconded, guess what would happen? We'd be done with it.
Well, then we'd be done with it.
Well, I don't
But
want
you
to
don't
be done
want
with
that to
it. We
happen.
don't want to be
We
done
don't
with
want
it.
that.
We
It's
want to.
great.
We want to hear
The
what
two
Mr.
of you
Paget and the lift and all these
coexist.
great ideas. Right.
Then
There's a
let's-
lot of.
Then let's hear from Mr. Paget.
Right. Exactly. But.
Mr. Paget, can you come up, please?
And that's all we're saying, it's gonna end up a
You
vote.
know, earlier you
But
told me that you didn't want to give this to the
wait.
foundation. You know, I mean,
Afraid
Oh, so you want us to vote it down
do it the right way and
Okay, then I was not prepared to
but
vote.
I'm ready to
it's a
vote.
done deal.
No. Not what you want to vote today.
Mr. Paget, I'm sorry to bring you up in a meeting that I feel so passionately about, but I'm still not through raising my voice, I guess. But go ahead. Some of the options that we have.
Yeah, well, let me make, share some thoughts
Please,
with you,
listen.
clarify a couple of things, so there's not any misunderstanding, and make a suggestion or two. First of all, and I'm going to defer certainly to your board attorney on the legality of this meeting, but my recollection is that the superintendent may call a meeting. He has the authority to call a meeting. And I believe within that authority is the discretion as to whether or not the superintendent feels it is an emergency. Now, you may differ, but that's my recollection of his authority, his responsibility. And also, Ms. Jorgensen, I would take a little technical lawyer issue with the 7-day requirement, because and then, again, I will defer to Mr. Douglas, but when I was your attorney, I had to research this. It's been the practice of this district for years to give at least 7 days' notice of regularly scheduled meetings and have the agenda ready. But to my knowledge, there is no statute that says that you have to give 7 days or 6 days or 5 days. The law, as I recall, says you have to give reasonable notice under the circumstances, and I see that Mr. Douglas is nodding. So the concept of having to give 7 days is not based on law or legal requirement, but just the practice of the district over the years. And the ultimate test, I believe, is whether or not, under the circumstances, the particular meeting, sufficient notice was given. There's even cases that I recall reading where only a day's notice was given on a meeting, and the court said it was reasonable under the circumstances because the media had been contacted, it was in the paper, it had been posted, blah-de-blah. So those are just some observations. And again, I certainly would defer to Mr. Douglas because he's a lot more current than I am on it at this point. An observation. Liv Putnam is here to try to help students, schools, and you folks and improve the quality of life in Putnam County. And we're not here to try to undermine any negotiations or plans that you may have or that others may have. And I think I made that point, I hope I made it clear several meetings ago when I said, down the road, you might want to consider Lift Putnam if nothing meaningful had developed by your deadline. Now, you know, I was involved, and I know the district has been working for years to try to sell the building for a fair price. And for a variety of reasons, it just hasn't happened. Now, I'm concerned about your taking a risk on this charter school issue. What if it turns out that somebody somewhere with authority says, well, October 1 was the deadline? Well, that's Sunday, I think. And if that risk becomes a reality, then by not taking any action today, you may have missed the deadline. Now, I'm not saying it's October 1, but what I'm saying is, due to the uncertainty, you know it's October something. Why roll the dice on that? If the consequences could be so severe as to lose the option to do something other than putting it out there for people to gobble up. Somebody mentioned out-of-state profit, you know, people. So,
For profit.
yeah, that's your call, obviously. And, you know, we're going to respect whatever you do. But it's something that as we sit here and I listened to your conversation, I thought, gee, you may be playing kind of a high-stakes game here, because if there are those people out there that are looking for these kind of opportunities, believe me, they will split hairs. And they won't be the least bit reluctant to say, should have done something. So who knows?
Jim, let me just interject. I was going to say a minute ago, we did have a public records request for an outside the district company wanting to know all the property we had available. So, you know,
People are looking.
so they're looking. So I'm just want to make y'all aware that.
And something I wanted to say, and I said to the superintendent earlier, it kind of goes along with what you're saying. Many people in our area think of a charter school as our charter schools, as the Reading Center, as Putnam Academy of Arts and Sciences, as EDGE. Not the big profit makers.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things here.
Yeah, I know,
right?
but they can come in and take
Right.
our building.
Right.
And it's not going to help anybody in Putnam County. It's going to take our students away from us, and they're going to make money that we're not going to get any of. So we got to have that mindset.
Yeah, and that's one of the thoughts. You know, our board, Lift Putnam Board, is aware that this issue is here. We haven't taken any votes because really there hasn't been anything to vote on. Now, I can tell you from the conversations that we have had, there's extremely high interest in going forward with the concept. And for this reason, and you've already alluded to some of it, and that is local control over the future use of that building and disposition of it. Lift Putnam does have, and if there's another local education foundation here in Putnam County, I can tell you there's only one LEF. But we have some options that the district, as a matter of law, just doesn't have because we are a 501c3, and we can use the tax deductibility of money coming to us, frankly, as a way to maybe expand the county's opportunity to do something with the building, maybe in a more profitable fashion.
Endowments, different things.
Then, yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question, and I'm trying to think outside the box? Is there a possibility that the board and the superintendent can sell that building to Lift Putnam and to the art center for $1 for 10 years or anything like that, it can't be done. And then it comes back, you know, if there is something down the road. I mean, I'm just trying to, because I don't want what you just said, the boogaboo, to bite us and they say, the date certain was October 1st, which was on a Sunday, and we missed the boat. But
Well, I'd like to, you know, the legal aspect of
it's
that.
our building and we want it to benefit our community.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't want any outsiders to come in and take it for
Once we.
whatever,
No.
you know.
Well, as far as the legal nature of that question, I would certainly defer to Mr. Douglas, but I can tell you that,
No.
Once we enter
there's so
into-
much uncertainty in that type of proposal. Frankly, I don't know whether our board, because should our board have the building, then we want to plan and make sure those plans are implemented. So, but anyway, I'd let Mr. Douglas answer that. I think that something like that, I'm just speculating a bit, would be less attractive to our board.
Charlie, if we were to enter into an agreement, we would essentially tie up this building into our negotiations with Lift Putnam, and it would pass the October 1st deadline, and it would keep us until it's resolved if we took a vote and did this. So I'm just, my concern is that we're going to, there are so many things that he hasn't even talked about that, as I've
willing
worked
to.
in my lifetime in education, endowments with the college, and if you understood how the
David,
money
I don't
comes.
think anybody has to be talked into this.
No.
I don't think any of us have to be talked into this.
All right, well, then I'll defer my
I
comments
think
for a
we're
little while.
all 100% supportive.
Yes.
Well, let's,
Well, I'm just,
let Jim continue then.
yes, ma'am. Which one?
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay.
You've taken care of mine.
I
The
just wanted
legalities.
to ask real quickly.
Sure.
You are willing to work with Mr. Russo and his group
Yes.
to help their vision?
Right, absolutely. Now, I want to clarify exactly what's
Okay,
taken
'cause
place.
that's
There haven't been
important.
any deals made. There haven't even been any concrete proposals. I think that we have a mutual respect for the vision of each group. I've listened to his presentation, and I was very impressed with it. And I have listened to a lot of people in the community say, wouldn't it be wonderful if Putnam County could have something like that? So, yeah, we've discussed this, nothing in writing, but should we get title to the building, of course, we would sit down with them and explore any reasonable possibilities. Is that a guarantee that a deal would come out of it? Absolutely not, because we don't even really have anything of substance to consider, other than we have a mutual desire to do something better.
Well, I just
But
want to hear
yes,
that
we
there's a
certainly
good
would.
faith
Oh, absolutely.
agreement
Sure.
with
Yeah.
the two of you.
I'm 100% supportive of Lift Putnam getting control of that building and protecting it from a charter school taking it.
This is
Especially when it's for
actually the
profit.
best proposal I've heard.
I've had
Oh,
dialogue
what
with,
happened to that other one?
I have, Jane, I have personally had dialogue with President Pickens at the college, and they're not ready right now, but at some point, they may want to try to utilize portions of the building to do certain projects. There's just a lot of avenues that they would have that we don't have access to.
Let me add one thing about, and he mentioned endowment. I think that should Lift Putnam have this asset, and I don't want to sound like a lawyer or a CPA.
You do sound like a lawyer.
But it would enhance our, as Mr. Pickens calls it, our portfolio to present to those people that could provide us with an endowment. I think it would really
Oh, it
enhance
really would.
our stature there. And as we look at our plan to try to get every needy child into our program in Putnam County, we need an endowment. This would be, I think, a wonderful building block to get one. So,
Okay,
I don't have any questions.
thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Paget before I call the next person up? Mr.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Tim? I'm not gonna try to say your last name. If you'll state your name and address and
Tim Hoteling, 105 Riverside Way, San Mateo. A couple quick observations and two quick questions. I think that the city of Palatka would be really tickled if you'd sell it and it became contributory to their income, and that seems to escape. And you all made the term of the ultimate test of this notice. And in my mind, the ultimate test of the notice is if there's a citizen voter out there that has bits and pieces of knowledge and something to contribute that is totally unaware and missed the boat because you didn't have the courtesy to tell them, my opinion.
We told them.
And like, I just saw the paper by accident and came rushing down here. My two questions. Last one. Y'all seem to be talking without having any documents in front of you as if it's a backroom deal and or you don't. I'm just, from the outsider's point of view, it didn't, didn't appear well documented, and apparently I'm wrong. When the building gets listed, when and if the building gets listed with the state, does the title transfer to the state?
No, my understanding is we would still be owners of the building, but a charter school could come in and actually set up an operation within our building. So we would still, we would still own it. Basically, with an outside organization, they could attract students from our other schools, and basically we would have received less funding for those students who attend that school. So it would have a financial effect on our district.
Is there a chance that an outside entity like that can provide us with better trained and educated students?
Not if the demographics are the same. Not if they pull in students with the same demographics as we have, sir.
We have the finest teachers.
And we have a good education for those students.
So then why are you afraid?
And are
We're not,
interested in education.
because we won't get any funding from that. Not a dime.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Jerry Hafner?
Hi, my name is Jerry Hafner, 122 Hilty Lane, East Palatka. Just a couple general questions. First of all, if a charter school or somebody else stepped in during October and wanted use of that building, do they then assume ownership of the building?
Now, Jerry, we would still own it, but the school would have the authority through the state to actually come in and set up their school on our property.
Okay, and what is the downside of
They
that?
remove FTE from the operation of the general school district.
They would take our
They
students.
divert
and our
funds.
And Rhonda could, if you want to, our CFO, Rhonda Odom, could probably answer that more specifically as far as
Well,
funding.
no, I think that's a fair answer.
Okay, all right,
I
thank
kind
you,
of
Ron.
thought that was the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
because they would take our students, then we wouldn't.
And
have
we're
enough students to
prohibited
teach.
from using it because of SREF standards that would have to be brought up to grade, but a charter school could come in and they're exempt to certain standards.
Yeah, okay. The second question is, and excuse my ignorance here, I'm not totally sure I understand how Lift Putnam would use this for endowment possibilities. How does that work?
That would have to
And I think Mr. Padgett would have to answer that. Jim, do you want to come up here and address that?
I will.
Yeah.
And we'll make it clear that I'm not saying that it would result in an endowment.
No, I understand that.
But the people that we have talked to about what we need to do to get the attention of people like Gates and Bush and some of the others is to, one, show a need in Putnam County, and obviously that's easy. But the real threshold question for them is they say, okay, what have you done for yourself? What efforts have you made to accumulate assets and money to fund your program? So if Putnam had this piece of property, then obviously it has value depending upon the appraisals, but we know it's got significant value. And it will show that the district, working with Lift Putnam, that Lift Putnam's been able to enhance its ability to carry out our projects, and it may well qualify us for some matching funds if we show we've raised X amount of dollars or have assets worth X amount of money. Then we can apply to certain foundations that will not give you any money except for matching funds. And the logic behind that is, well, you get out and do something yourself, and if you raise $1, then maybe we'll give you $1, but we're not gonna just give you $1. So it does those two possibilities.
No, that's fair. Don't run off, because you have to answer one more question. My last question is, I understand the use for cultural arts and things like that, but I'm not sure, other than these endowment possibilities, what other uses would Lift Putnam have for the building? So I'd be interested in hearing that, and then I'll take my answer while I'm sitting down out there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jerry.
Well, it's gonna sound like a lawyer answer, because we're at a stage right now, we don't even know, frankly, if you want to offer it to us. In our board, the first question is, do we want to accept it? And if so, what would we use it for? How would we use it to the benefit? Takes some time. But I can tell you this, that it would be used in a fashion to enhance students in schools and the school district. And we're required by law to do that. We can't go off on any tangent and decide, for example, if we wanted to sell it and give them the money to the Red Cross, even so the Red Cross is a very worthwhile organization. Legally, our funds, whether it's from renting the property, I'm just saying that's a possibility, or selling the property, or some kind of joint venture, whatever monies we realize has to go to the Putnam County School District, which I think is one of the reasons that this board is interested in alternatives, because my understanding, and Mr. Douglas and Mr. Sorensen might want to correct me on this, but my understanding is that if you were to sell, if the district sold the building, that the money may have to go into capital improvements, which would tie your hands a bit if you didn't want the money to go into capital improvements. But if Lift Putnam receive some fantastic offer down the road, and that's purely hypothetical and speculative, then the money would not have to go into capital improvements.
You're a non-direct support
Right.
organization.
Yeah. So,
And let me, while we've got Jim here, let me just say, this is not breaking new ground. We have, the old Johnson School, school board graciously let us donate it to the county, and it's used at the Johnson Community Center, Redlands Christian Migrant, softball tournaments, community and activities in West Putnam. The old Willaca Town Hall is the old Willaca School. The
Pomona Park.
Pomona Park is the old, we gave them the old school, and that's the school. So I could go on and on with what we've done. The senior center, we gave them property there. This is, the taxpayers of this county bought and paid for this, and I know you guys pretty much agree with me on this. We want to keep the return from this investment in somehow where the taxpayers will benefit in Putnam County, and it's not going to refurbish one room for $160,000. And this could go on for decades. I could see the college, coming in at some point and working with Mr. Paget or the Cultural Arts Center, Florida School of the Arts, endowment.
After-school programs.
And after school, our students could, who knows? The possibilities are there, and they're limitless, and they can access funding that we can't. So that's why I was so passionate about making a motion today, and I'm sorry, but it's a one, you don't get many shots or many bites at an apple, and this is, we're down to the last swing of the apple here, so.
I'm just sorry this didn't come up before. 3 days before October 1st. I mean, why weren't we talking about this 6 months ago?
Well, in every meeting, I kept saying, let's talk about the foundation, and let's talk about the foundation, but
But we didn't.
I had some,
Well, we've been patiently waiting on our real estate broker to bring us information, and they've been doing that.
And they
you know,
have, and they're just not out there.
And I will take the responsibility for calling this meeting when we did, because I wanted to give our brokers every opportunity to sell the building. So at this time, at the 11th hour, I wanted at least us come together and have the conversation. And again, I want to be legal about everything, and I'm waiting on Mr. Douglas to advise us on what we can do in this meeting. And by the way, we did give notice on Saturday for this meeting, and each day the paper's been printed. So we did put this in the paper starting Saturday. But our intention is to bring this to you as a board, let you discuss it, and if you so choose, take action, if legal to do so.
my intent is, as soon as Mr. Douglas gives me the nod, I will make a motion that we, as a board, enter into an agreement to be negotiated, the agreement we've looked at between the foundation and Mr. Hedstrom's firm. So I have to wait till Jane gets back and be recognized and called on.
Wait, she has asked me to call the next public comment, which is June Thompson.
Well, I don't know if y'all ready for me to sit down. I'm ready to sit down. But I'll be glad to answer any more questions that you have. But just let me say this in conclusion. Whatever y'all decide, you know, we hope we have this opportunity because we think it could really enhance our ability to do even more. But we're not going to be mad with anybody. We're going to go on about our business. We're going to continue to focus on our mission. This just seems to be an opportunity that's developed that might be really good for us in the county. So if you decide to go forward with us, we will have a meeting tomorrow so we can give you a prompt response.
Yeah.
Thank you.
June comment. I just did receive a text back from DOE because I'm not okay with this inconsistent. I'm not sure who you talked to, but I'll be taking a call and I'll leave. That's going to be who it is because I want a date certain. I'm not okay with, well, it could be the 1st, it could be.
So you think they're going to give you a date certain?
I do.
And you think that's going to be binding?
I don't know. Who did you talk to?
Talked to the chancellor of K-12, Herschel Lyons.
Okay, well, let's see if they call
He's
back.
the number 2 man.
Well,
It's
even
actually a
if they
different
give you that
department,
over the phone, it's not going to be
Well,
binding.
it matters to me. I just like things done procedurally correct. I
Well,
don't
if you
like
hear
to-
something, let us know, because
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
curious
be-
too.
Yeah, really.
I know, I am too.
Good luck.
Well, I don't know. Why are we waiting?
Jane,
It should have been
go
settled
ahead.
before the meeting.
Okay, I wanted to just say I'm just really so pleased with the conversation that's going on today. Really, this is exciting. I wanted to suggest, though, to tie everything kind of together about forming maybe a collaboration between the organizations that have been mentioned who share common goals to with kind of education and the arts and things like that, to form a collaboration between them, like saving the Campbell building, the ones who want to save the Campbell building, and the cultural center. And I would also like to, just for the record, have the Natural History Museum still included, and the Bartram Museum would be a part of that, and the Florida School of the Arts. And if I remember correctly, when I was talking to the Division of Historical Affairs, that they mentioned that they would need an organization to take the responsibility of heading it up, which would be probably a perfect opportunity for the Lift Putnam that could serve as that. So there's just a lot of ways of pulling all of these things together, just working really beautifully, I
Right,
think.
exactly.
So,
The bottom line is serving these kids that do not have access to prenatal care, and they do not have parents that can put them in pre-K, and try to find the dollars to help these kids live better lives. And that's what this is about, June. Thank you.
right,
Give
there's
them
so
that
many
start, that
different
jump.
organizations, like you were talking about, places to bring money from.
Yes.
If we all work together and tap these different organizations, that's really a lot more money.
None of
And
us
also-
is as strong as all of us. That's a fact.
Ms. Jorgensen?
Well, I was just going to say that once the board agrees to transfer ownership of the property to Lift Putnam, I think Lift Putnam will be the one gathering
Yes.
all the interested parties to collaborate.
Yes, I would like that to be something that would be in his plan, that all of those
I'm sure it
interested
is.
people would be. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman, do we have any more public speakers?
I don't have any more comment cards.
I have a comment before you do what you're
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
do.
Yes, ma'am.
That thing.
I wish that phone would ring.
I know.
I'll
don't-
take the superintendent who's secretary of the board's conversation over that any day of the week, but that's me.
Well, I mean, I think if they had known, they would have told the superintendent what date certain was.
Yeah.
Well, I specifically asked the question because I wanted to know exactly too, but all we have, Rhonda, correct me if you got any additional information, but October is when we're supposed to publish this, all of our ancillary property. Right.
But don't we do it every year? Aren't we required every year to,
But this is the House bill.
And we've already had a public records
I mean, we did a
request.
fish report every year, and that was when we were told that we had too much auxiliary.
Right.
Ancillary.
And had to,
so this is new legislation?
Yes.
That everybody has to report in October. And that's how the legislation is worded, in October.
We've already had a public records request.
31st. If you do it on the 31st, you're still in October.
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not willing to bet the Campbell building on that, but, I mean, I'd like to, Madam Chairman, make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that out of a lack of credible offers of any substance, that we take steps to transfer or enter into negotiations with the contract between Lift Putnam and the Putnam County School District to have Mr. Hedstrom's firm transfer the ownership to them so that we may find a way to bring more opportunities for our young people and our citizens in Putnam County than we've had in any of the past negotiations over some of the offers that we've had. And that is my motion.
Is there a second? Go ahead and say what you want to say.
I'm going to second it simply because I don't know the date certain, and I want to make sure that no one gains control of that building that we would probably be sorry for, could cost the district FTE, or anything of that nature, because I've seen it when the enrollment is not there and you have to let a teacher go and they're moved, and so with that in mind, and everything I've heard is just great for our community, I'm gonna second
Okay,
it.
I'd like to ask
This is too late.
a question.
I really hate that phone has not rung, but I can't.
I would like to ask our attorney a question. If the statute says we have to file this in October of 2017, in your opinion, does that give us all the days of October to do it?
I'm afraid that even if we, the Putnam County School District, interpreted it that way, that if DOE came back later and said that's not how it should be interpreted, that we would lose.
Yeah, they don't work on normal.
If I could also interject too, as far as the matter of notice goes, I believe that we have given proper notice for this meeting. As far as the action item title on the agenda goes, I've been doing some research here as we've been talking. A couple comments I want to make about that. In board docs, under the subtitle of type of action, it does state on the agenda, it says the type of agenda item is for action.
Okay.
And secondly, even if it is not on the
Printed
official
agenda?
printed title, I'm not aware of any rule that requires it to be in a heading, the word action. I've also looked at some sample agendas from Duval County where I have found that they have not used the word action in their headings.
Or either input, action, input,
And-
discussion, and action?
Right. So I think that is more of a historical way that we have titled agendas in the past, and not a state requirement.
So it's what the public expects, because we've always done it that way, like the 7 days notice.
Yeah. So I don't think substantively it would affect the validity of your vote. And the third thing I want to say is I would ask that the motion be amended to include the phrase that it is of great public importance for the property to be disposed of in this way. That's important for legal term.
I have no problem in saying, I'm adding to the motion, that it is of the greatest public importance to make this motion and to take this vote at this time.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
It passes.
Wait,
Motion
I didn't-
passes. Motion, huh?
Yeah, okay, you got the vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
I voted, I didn't know if you heard me.
No, I didn't hear
I
it.
paused,
I
you
did.
did
She
it
voted.
too
I'm
fast.
sorry,
I
I
didn't
didn't
hear.
hear
What
you.
was
What
the
was
vote?
your vote?
Yeah, that's what I was curious, because it was so
She
quick.
said yay.
Who voted?
Okay.
I-
Do you wanna
I
do it
wanna-
again?
I just want to make sure we have it on record because of, it's important.
Sandy said
Again,
yay,
procedurally,
Yeah.
procedurally.
We had at least 3, I know.
Am I
And
to do it again?
No, I don't
No?
think so.
Okay.
She voted.
majority,
She,
Yeah,
she needs to know the names of who voted yes.
Could we do a roll call vote just so we're
Yes.
clear? District 1,
Yes.
District 2?
yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, the-
Okay, I couldn't do, who is Bowen? Okay, this came after a motion, so it was really out of place, but I'm willing to let you say what you need to say if you'd like to come up.
My name is Bowen Bryant. I live on 415 North 6th Street. I'm kind of new to Palaka in a sense. However, I used to cut your hair.
Thank you.
He cut his hair.
You didn't put enough to cover the gray though, but.
Sorry. No, I have children that go to Putnam County schools, and I'm kind of new getting into this. There are a lot of us parents that are not aware of these things taking place, but by all means, I am quite sure that if we dug hard enough, there are a lot of supporting parents that agree with doing things like Lift Putnam and cultural arts and anything that you can do to uplift these children, because these children do not have it. So I was just in support of that, and I didn't want anyone to make decisions without having someone from the public that doesn't have anything to do with the legal sides of things to be able to say that we do to support bettering this community.
Well, thank you for your comments.
And we'd love for you to come back to any
I will
school
be here
board meeting you
Tuesday.
can.
Good, good.
Nobody ever comes unless it's
All right,
something.
real quick before
Okay.
we adjourn, who's going
Thank
to
you
be
for
at
coming.
at the Interlochen High Homecoming Parade?
I'm going with you.
You're going, and you're going to be there. Where are we going to meet you?
Are we gonna, who's getting the banners?
I'm going to go to
David is
Staples.
I'm going to meet you in the parking lot at Staples.
All right, parking lot of Staples.
What color is the
Is
truck?
this
David?
really important?
Red,
to
candy
not
apple
have
red.
the meeting?
All right,
Red
sorry.
swap on you.
Meeting is adjourned. That's David.